Hi, I'm Luther Kruger with the Big Blue Sun Museum of Solar Cooking in Minneapolis, and I'm here with Jim LaJoie with the all-season solar cooker, one of the popular ones out there for people do cooking on a daily basis at home or camping. Incredible cooker, and so I'm just going to chat a little bit about how did you discover solar cooking, how did you get into the field, and we'll talk a little bit about the cooker itself, how did you come up with the design,
Okay.
and then maybe just brainstorming over what's the future of solar cooking and promoting it and so forth. So how did you find out about solar cooking?
Well, I grew up in Arizona, and so you get an idea of the power of the sun when you do that. Running around barefoot, you find out that if you're barefoot on black pavement, it hurts, and if you stand on the white line on the pavement, it doesn't hurt. So that was, and then started reading the Mother Earth News, and I just saw some interesting things to build. And one of their solar cooker designs was the first one that I built, and I was just so happy with the way that it performed. It made out of plywood, and I had mirrors, and it had a metal box and insulation. It's really a quite complex design, very heavy, but it worked, and the people I showed it to were really impressed with it. So that kind of got me going in it.
And then you moved on to was this basically the same thing, only redesigned?
I built a parabolic out of cardboard. I built lots of box cookers. This is a panel cooker. This was wise, but I kept solar cooking for I started in the 70s, and I just continued to be a solar cook all the way through. And I would build a cooker and I would use it. And usually, what would happen is they would fall apart eventually, depending on what I built them out of. And then the last cooker I built was I wanted it to be lightweight, so I built it out of that rigid foam.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, board. Okay, because it had insulation and lightweight. The stuff I got already had reflective material on it and stuff. So built it out of that, and it worked real well. But a friend of mine invited me to go camping, and I happened to be cooking beans at the time, and I took put the beans in the rig, and I put my solar cooker in the rig, and it was just too big to get through the door, so it broke.
Oh no,
that foam was not very strong. But I prevailed, drove out there, put it back together in the desert, and taped it back together, and cooked and impressed everybody. But then coming home, I broke it again, putting it back in, because it's just,
Yeah.
Anyway, but on that trip back home, I thought there's got to be a way to make a nice, sturdy, collapsible solar cooker. So on my trip back from the desert, this is where this design came to be. So I hadn't built anything that was a panel type of cooker before that I liked. And this was, when I first built this, I designed it as a box cooker, but there were many limitations. I found out that as a panel cooker, it would just do a lot more. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a pot on a trivet or a cooling rack.
Yeah.
And a turkey bag, right? The oven bag, as they call them.
Yeah. Well, these are restaurant grade oven bags, and I know that because I buy them from a restaurant supply house. Okay, but these are, a turkey bag you buy in the stores. It's usually a single use. These bags are pure nylon. They're made out of the same stuff our old fishing lines used to be made out of. They're hydro, whatever. They like to absorb water. They also dry out very quickly in the sunshine. So they never touch your food. They're only touching the pot. The pot won't melt these things because they're a very high temperature bag. And when I'm done with it, when I take the food out, I'll take the bag. It's interesting. The bag will be, this area of the bag wasn't exposed to the food cooking. Will be really crinkly. All right, and this area of the bag that was exposed will be really soft, because that just shows you how much water it absorbed and how much water it lost. This nylon does. Sure. So I just take them out and I wipe them with a clean cloth or damp cloth, fold them up, put them away, and they just last and last and last. You know, I have, this is the bag, but I've had a bag I've been using since June. Okay, and I've been using it every day, and I don't take it in and out of the sun. I let the sun burn down on it all day, and it's still hanging in there.
Sure.
So yeah, they don't last forever, but they're really good alternatives.
So the restaurant grade nylon are the ones you get in the store, maybe nylon, but just like a thinner.
I don't think they're nylon. I think they're something else. I think they're HDPE.
Okay.
But, yeah, and they're good for single use.
Sure.
But once you get that, and then maybe for multiples, I don't know. But once you get that cooking grease on them, it just ruins them. You know. So if you spill on these, you got to clean it up right away. But that's no. I've had real good luck with these, and for a while, Solar Cookers International. Yeah, on their website, they had these bags available. That's kind of how I discovered them.
Sure, so use them for the cooking.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah. Well, it's I've got one. Use it a time or two. My problem is I got 70 cookers, so I got to give them equal weight, but it's effective. It does the job. It's really great. Well, so the future, your future with this, keep on going with this. Is pretty much. You're happy with this design? I know some of them that put them out. It's like, oh man, I got to fix this or that or the other. You know.
Yeah. There's little tweaks. The original all-season solar cooker. Excuse me. This is a thin version of it. I probably shouldn't open it up, but it was different. It was smaller. Okay. It had the cooking floor on this was 12 inches by 12 inches, and people. I mean, it worked really well, and I ran with these for about 9 years, but people kept saying, can I have a bigger cooker? And so the first thing I did, since I liked this design, was I just made it twice as wide, and I just tried to make it twice as big. But to do that out of a single sheet of my material, it couldn't be done, and the amount of waste I was producing was massive. And one of the things I'm sensitive to is how much scrap do I leave when these things are done. And so I just started redrawing. And with this one, I get as much as I possibly can out of a 4x8 sheet. I get 2 of these out of a 4x8 sheet, and I have very little cutoffs remaining. And it's polypropylene, so that recycles. So, but still, you want to try to be as green as you can. Sure. So, am I trying to improve it? Yeah. It's pretty good, it's working pretty well. But one of my users wrote to me, and the biggest problem with this one, and you probably know since you own one, is that when you first put it together, this is real stiff stuff, okay? And it comes together like that, where these things aren't folded like they should be. You have this elongated cooker. And that didn't work so good, all right? But the directions say, well, you gotta flex it a lot, okay? And when you do that, then you wind up with more of an octagonal shape, and now all the reflectors are working like they should, and it's doing its job. So if I could figure out a way to make that not as difficult for people, I would do that. I don't love using the bags, but I've just made my peace with them. For the lower one, I used to use glass bowls. But when you use glass bowls, you're really limited to the cookware you can use. It's got to fit inside the glass bowl. I think you might have seen some of my videos showing that kind of stuff. And then finding big glassware is almost impossible. I work on it. We used to have clothespins that would go here, and somebody said that would kind of maw and paw, and you got to do better. So we got a little clutch here where you can, it's a little friction thing with some rubber washers in there, so you can go up and down, and it kind of holds its place without losing the other things. Oh, this is an improvement here too. I like this one. This is the sun sight, and this was kind of a fun thing because I didn't know how to get this thing to sight on the sun. I kept thinking, how do I do that? I had wires coming up, and I would cut this a little bit different, I just kept, how do you do that, And one night, and I woke up, this was in my head. This is how you do it.
Sure.
And I got up, turned on the Mac, drew it out, went back to bed. The next morning, I built it. And the only design change I've made to it over the years has been to put this 1 hour ring around the pin.
Sure.
So people don't know what 1 hour ahead of the sun is. Well, now, if you keep your shadow within that ring, okay, you're within 15 degrees of perfect focus.
Sure.
So if you're trying to set up a long-term cooking session, it's still morning, okay. So the sun's going up, so we turn the cooker ahead of the sun, and then just like that, so you get a little shadow going there, and then we raise it up because the sun's going up, and as long as I'm staying inside my 1 hour ring, what happened is it very good cooking potential right now. In an hour, it'll be perfect, and then in another hour, that shadow would have come out here to the edge of the ring, and it's time to refocus. But by that time, almost everything's done. Unless you're doing something like dry beans that take a long time. Yeah.
You can run errands and do weed the garden, whatever you need.
Absolutely, yeah. That's probably one of my biggest drawbacks is I forget I'm solar cooking.
Yes.
And I come back and the shadow is on the next building or something, So that happens. But again, usually by then, whatever I had in there is long been done. Sure. It just stayed warm for me.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's a beautiful cooker. It's the size of that pot. Well, that's a turkey. I mean, that's an average size turkey, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just amazing. I remember when I started collecting cookers, I just had a deep-seated prejudice against panel cookers. And then the first one I got, I said, okay, well, let's give this a shot. It was the Solar Household Energies hot pot. That foldable aluminum base, and then
I got one right here.
Yeah. And so one day I said, well, I'll take another word, and I put the beef stew, a good amount of beef stew in the pot, set it up, pointed toward about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, starting at 9 in the morning. 5 o'clock, that beef was like, it wasn't on the bone. You stick the fork in, it wouldn't stay on the fork, it's so tender. It's just incredible.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, yeah. So I said, okay, drop all this, but no panel cooker nonsense,
Yeah.
And now it's like, I think probably it's almost equal thirds for the both. Panel, box, parabolic, and then a smattering of like I've built my own Fresnel lens cooker, and then I've got the Go Sun Fusion. So I got to have
you got the little tube one.
Yeah, the tube one. Yeah. Listen, the Fusion's it's bigger. It's maybe 4 or 5 inches. And I got the mini when they first came out, and okay, if you cook one hot dog or 2 hot dogs,
right, exactly.
You cook a full meal in the Fusion.
Yeah.
And I like the solar panel that works to build up the power pack, and then they've the cooking trough is lined with a heating element.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so you can slide it back in and plug the heating element back into it, and it heats up. And I had it for like 6 months. I finally did a class at a grade school. And there were 4 kids that just sucked it up and were just deep into it. But we had to do it inside the room, and it started at about 3:30 when they were done with the regular school. So I couldn't really set it out. So I did that. I plugged it in, and just was able to slide it on and say, well, no, don't touch the metal, but hold your hand above it. It's like maybe an inch above it. And they're already saying, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So, well, the sun will do that. I'm just doing it with the battery now for demonstration.
Yeah.
But this and Roger Haynes' cooker. I mean, I'll put beans in there, 1.5 cups, 2 cups of beans, water, and more, whatever needs to be soaked overnight, do that. But by supper time, we got beans for 8 people.
Yeah.
And the same with this. It's the volume is incredible.
That's what the box cookers that have the glass door on them. Those are good cookers, but the volume's poor, And when you go to tilt them, you lose your volume because there's a tray in there, and as that tray swings, it hits the door, and either you have to remove the door or you have to take some of the food out of the pot or put a smaller pot in. So it works well, and people I think are comfortable with it because it's more like cooking with a regular oven. But the panel cookers, I don't know. I think they're that one you got, the power body.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Yes.
He's Ravinda has got it where he knows that the sun comes up in the morning.
Yes.
Okay. and you can aim it right at the sun first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
So that if it's okay, can I go over 4 points
Sure.
for solar cooking?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people um, don't have a real good first experience for solar cooking because they've forgotten one of the 4 basics. All right, and I use the acronym CARB. C for collection, A for absorption, R for retention, and D for duration. And that's you need all 4 of those things to cook successfully. So for collection, all solar cookers, your tube cooker, all the box cookers, all the panel cookers, all the parabolics, they collect light and they put that light down into a cooking area. Okay, that's your collection. The next thing you want to do, and this is where a lot of people make a mistake, is you have to change that light into heat. So you need to absorb the light. And I've seen lots of errors where people will put in a chrome pan.
Sure.
It doesn't
or white enamel pan.
You
got it from your grandma. It's got to work.
Everywhere, right? It just doesn't work because the color white reflects all light. The color black sends no light back. When that light hits the black, the thermodynamics are is it excites because it can't go anywhere. It excites the molecules in the pot, and they move against each other, and the pot gets hot, and that's what cooks your food. So you got collection, you have absorption. Now we worked real hard to get that pot getting hot in there, and we want to retain that heat. So one of the ways, like a box cooker will have a glass panel on the front to retain it, and there's lots of ways to retain heat. Roger's got a nice thing that he does with his, with the plastic dome and the sleeve.
Yeah,
I like that. Is you want to keep the wind, you want to keep the ambient air off, and so I use these nylon bags. Sometimes I'll use glassware, but that's the notion. You got to have, as long as you collected the heat. The only thing that doesn't use something like that would be the parabolics, because they get so very hot.
Yep.
And then the last thing, so we talked about collection, we talked about absorption, we talked about retention, and the last thing we need is duration. Do a cake mix. It says put it in the 325 oven for 40 minutes. So if you put the cake mix in the 325 oven for 5 minutes and take it back out, you've got
mush.
Exactly. You got pudding or something, And so duration's important. You have to have the sun working for you enough time. So you kind of have to be a weather person to be able to do this. But you also have to have the opportunity to cook at any time of the day. And I think the advantage of what I like about the Parbati and what I like about this one is if the sun is lower in the sky, I can lower my, these are all coordinated, and you can see, if you look at the sun sight's pointing right at the horizon, okay? So as soon as the sun comes up, you're going to get perfect focus with this. And then as it continues to climb, you can make other adjustments on it, always using the sun sight. And then if the sun gets really high in the sky, like it does in the equator, then you can actually get this thing going straight up. Okay, so from horizon to this high in this, I guess that's called the zenith up there,
Sure.
Back down to the horizon. So if you've got 12 hours of sun, you can cook for 12 hours, and you don't have to tilt the cooker when you do that. So because of that, and the blessing, okay? So because of that, collection, absorption, retention, duration, because you don't have to tilt the cooker, it's also very stable in the wind. And I'm not sure if you see one of the videos I posted that had this cooker in the wind.
I missed that one.
Oh, we had a Santa Ana day here, and the wind was like the strongest gust I have was like 28.
Oh, yeah.
And the bushes were blowing like this, but the cooker was stable because even though the cooker body itself only weighs about 3 pounds, when you put a pot of food in there, it just weighs it right down and it doesn't go anywhere. And for the wind to tilt this thing over, it's got to really push, right? And but if you have it tilted up like this, I don't want to spill my water, but the wind doesn't have to push very hard. So any cooker that tilts is going to be less stable than a cooker that always stays flat. So that's which brings me to the guy that had sent me one thing. He had, what he did is he put some clips, those binder clips like you get at the supply store, and then he put a string between the clips here and there, and then he pulled them together so he had the proper shape. This brand new cooker, he pulled it in the proper shape. And he sent me a drawing of it, and I posted it. That in the wind, a setup like that. I mean, this does really well in the wind, but if I added extra strings, which I'm debating whether to do or not, it would be even better in the wind than it is right now, because any wind is going to do this, which reduces its effectiveness somewhat, or that. And then if you put the string thing in there, it just makes it a lot more solid. Sure. So, sure.
Okay. Well, and then the future of the rest of the world. Do you have any ideas on, the raging debate on the Facebook on occasion is, well, how do we get people to use it where they need it to prevent deforestation, to, pasteurize their water, kill those waterborne pathogens and worms and all that?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
what are your thoughts on that?
Solar cooking saves lives. Period.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sure you've seen the photographs of the women with their children at their breast inside the smoky huts, and that's where they have their 3-stone fire, and the kids are getting a lot of air pollution from that. Really bad lungs, they're dying from that. And then they have just the bad water, which also kills the little ones because their intestines, their system isn't set up to deal with that yet. So that solar cooking is the fastest and the least expensive way to get safe water to the world, period. How long does it take to build a dam? Yeah. How long does it take to do the huge infrastructure for a water project and bring the pipes out to the most remote areas? One of these, they're lightweight. Get a pack mule, we put 300 of them on the back of a pack mule and carry it out where it's got to go. But for those people to give up their usual methods, they have to have something that's reliable. If you do promote solar cooking around the world, I think that you really have to carefully select the design that you use. It has to be something that's going to work for people. You can't send a paper or a cardboard cooker if the termites eat the paper and the rain ruins them.
Or the humidity, if it's humid enough.
Or the humidity, right? They just get soft. You've built them, And so it has to be something durable. It has to be something affordable. Preferably, it's something that can be built locally. Okay, so when I first started out, I made these plans public, and they wound up in 137 different countries just via that magic tool, the internet, right? And wow, that was really great. And some people sent me pictures of ones that they had built, and they stayed true to the plan. And a lot of them were made out of cardboard, and hopefully they'll find some stronger materials to build them from. But it's my goal there was to get people in refugee camps, the ones that had the drive to you build these and you sell them to your friends. And a few people have done that. They moved outside the camp, and they liked the yellow color because the white cookers were associated with poverty. The white cookers also didn't last very long. So I think that for it really to take off, especially in the third world, you really have to give people, encourage them to build or whatever, something that's going to last. They also have to consider their culture and their economy. If they're in an agricultural economy where they're gone from home during the middle of the day, and they normally have their evening meal just before sunset or at sunset, you have to have something that's actually going to produce a hot meal towards the end of the day, okay? Or I'm not sure how people work breakfast when the sun shines. If you head out to the fields when it's still dark, you can't do that. But you know what I mean? That's been another cultural thing. You say, okay, well, yeah, this produces a meal at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but nobody's here. It's so the third thing was just the culture. It turned out that the reading I did, I'm not sure you know this, of people going to collect wood. Well, that was, it would be just like one person walking off by themselves. It'd be these groups, and it was a social thing. And they might walk for 4 or 5 miles to get the wood and talk to each other, visit and talk about things, collect their wood, and they'd come back. So that was another thing. It was, we want that walk because it gets us out of the village or something. So
sure.
it's you have to understand your customers.
Yeah.
You really do. And then if you're really promoting it, you have to promote a really good product. You can burn wood and still smoke up the place after dark. but you don't have to burn wood in the daytime and smoke up the place. So this is an adjunct that would actually should fit into a program. I don't think that everything should do everything, okay?
Right.
Like, wood's good for some things, hydropower is good for some things, solar power is good for some things. It's got its limitations, but they all have their limitations. So when you put them together, like if you've got a cord of wood and I've got a cord of wood and you've got a solar cooker and I don't, all right, well, at the end of the year, I'm looking for a third or fourth cord of wood, and you're still burning your first one because you've been using your solar cooker when it's possible to use it. I think that's the way people like to think about it. It's an adjunct as opposed to a complete replacement. The one I've got in Khartoum, the guy that wrote me back about that, he says, we spend a quarter of our income on charcoal for cooking. Okay, and Khartoum, one of the sunniest cities on earth, it's just, he said these things pay for themselves just in the charcoal savings. So you can cook. They're in town. They're up on the roof of their buildings. They're safe, and they're cooking with the sun. And it's just like, okay, great. You're not burning charcoal right now. But anybody who doesn't have that, they are burning the charcoal. And they're paying a lot for it. So, and of course, charcoal's a whole other environmental. There's a thing called a top lit updraft stove, TLUD. And I built a TLUD, and then it's a smokeless stove. Okay, it's not emission free, so maybe that wouldn't work. But it's definitely a smokeless stove, and then I put a can of just wood scraps in the center of the TLUD stove, down amongst the wood, and I let the thing off. And when it all burned down, first of all, I cooked the meal. On the gas. When you open up that can, you've got this beautiful charcoal. So the same wood that you used to make the charcoal, you've also cooked the meal. And that charcoal, then you can either burn the charcoal with fuel, or you can put the charcoal into the soil and enrich the soil with it. You should look into those.
Sure.
I'll send you a picture of my design.
Sure. Is it kind of like a variation of the rocket stove? I keep reading the rocket stove.
It's a variation of the rocket stove, but it works on a completely different principle. You'll see. The air comes in, the inner wall gets hot because of the fire that heats the air.
Okay.
Then the air exits through holes at the top of the fire, and that gas, that hot air, ignites the smoke. So it's like an afterburner. So you get this beautiful ring of flames going around the top. Oh yeah, they're great. And they're easy to build, and they might fit in someplace because you cooked your meal and you did it with very few emissions, but you also made charcoal for your garden or for another meal or something. It's just, there's lots of changes going on. That if I had funding, I would probably get one of those built and include with a solar cooker for the times when people cook. Because I think that you can make charcoal out of banana peels.
Yes.
You can make it out of anything. You can make it out of feces. Okay. You can make charcoal and just anything organic. You can turn it into charcoal.
Sure.
And so why not? So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I can't think of anything else. Any last parting words for all those aspiring solar cookers or designers out there?
Well, yeah, solar cooking takes practice.
Yes.
All right, it's an art, and it's so you have to. It's like getting a bow and arrow. You're probably not going to hit the target the very first time. So I do my Thanksgiving turkey and my New Year's turkey. And the challenge there is, they're shorter days.
Yes.
Okay. But the challenge there is that my family traditionally eats at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
So I got to start as early as I can.
Yep.
And I have to have it on the table by 1, which really, but I have never failed with it.
Sure.
I'll do it like a 15-pound bird in that.
Sure.
And it's just falling off the bone tender and juicy.
Yep.
Never a dry slice of white meat. Yep. It's the way to go. So yeah, if I had all day,
yep,
I could probably even do something different. But both those days, and those are short days.
Sure.
And then on December 22nd, shortest day of the year, I cook dry beans from scratch. So I'll get my pinto beans out of the bag, haven't soaked them the night before, 2 cups of pinto beans, 5 cups of water, put it in, and that's the day when there's only 8 hours of sun. But I start as soon as it comes up, And by the time the sun sets, I've got beautiful, nice, tender pinto beans. So that's a very challenging meal. So I try to challenge myself, and I should cook more than I do. But how often do you use your cookers?
As often as I can now. If you've seen my posts on the World Network, Minnesota, it's the variety weather belt. There is no other way to put it, but we might have 2 weeks of clouds and a half hour of sun. Might have 2 weeks of sun and then a half hour of clouds. You know, we'll have a day like today. You'll see a cloud over there. Oh, that'll miss the sun, and it'll park itself.
Oh yeah, but it only parks itself if you're solar cooking.
That's right, exactly. Yeah.
Right,
so you basically just turn the cooker away and then it moves. Right.
Right, exactly. Hey, you guys, want to see that cloud move? Watch this. You know.
Well, great. Well, I can't think of anything else. This is fantastic. I'm so glad you took the time apart.
I'm glad I was able to talk to you. I love solar cooking. And I retired from healthcare 6 years ago, but I can't retire.
No.
It's just like if you've got something to give.
Exactly.
I'm 72 now. Well, I plan on keeping it up in solar cooking and doing this for as long as I can because it's important. It has to get out there.
Yep.
You know. And I mean, I'm not selling tires,
No.
or plastic tables. I'm selling something that really helps people and helping to promote it. And so are you. Good for you for doing it. Hey, you want a solar cooker?
Oh, I would love
it.
Hey, I would never turn my nose up.
Yeah. That way you can put two side by side.
Yeah.
And
wow, thank you.
This is the whole package. This is how they go out. I usually put it